Join us on all this, Sara Carter, investigative reporter, Fox News contributor, and Greg Jarrett. His book, still #1, New York Times bestseller, The Russian Hoax. Thank you both for being with us. Sara, you wrote extensively on this session Trump viewed yesterday.
Yes, and it's obvious now that there's a point being reached, an apex in Congress, so to speak, both in the Senate and the House, where, look, this is doing more damage to the country than good. The relationship, between Jeff Sessions and the president is very contentious. Obviously, they don't trust each other. The president needs somebody there, and it's his right to have somebody there that he can count on, somebody there that he actually has a working relationship with. We know that relationship for now has been really damaged, and the point here, Sean, is not about whether or not what the president wants to interfere or doesn't want to interfere. I think what people in the Senate and the House are seeing, those that I've spoken with, are saying, look, this is detrimental to the country. The best thing that could happen is for Jeff Sessions to either resign or to be removed. And, and they give the president all the authority to do so, the few that are supporting him in this. I think the bigger question is what is Sessions thinking? What does he want to do?
Well, it's obvious. He expressed himself yesterday. He doesn't think much of the president. I called over there, and to be fair to the Department of Justice, they actually took my call. They answered my questions, and the answer was what I always get from them, which I understand is what they have to say and do, but they can't comment on any ongoing investigation or potential investigation. So, in other words, they won't even confirm that anything's being looked into. And the public watches all of the double standard, and I think most people are pissed.
They are. They're angry. People are angry. Every person that writes to me, that writes to you, I'm sure, is frustrated and angry, and this is America. These are the people that aren't even involved in the Washington bubble who are so frustrated at watching the Mueller team, special counsel, go after everybody around Donald Trump, offering immunity deals to everyone, and then they look at what happened with Hillary Clinton, and they look at what's been happening with the FISA abuse scandal, and even with Rod Rosenstein and his involvement in ethical conflicts that have arisen from him actually asking the president to fire James Comey and pointing out very clearly in his letter to President Trump that the reasons why Comey should have been fired, and now somehow he's in charge of overseeing this special counsel, which is including obstruction wants to move into obstruction against the president. So there is a lot of frustration here. I think the biggest question here is, what is Jeff Sessions going to do? Is he going to force himself to sit there? Who the heck wants to work for someone who absolutely does not trust them? And he doesn't trust the president. So this, I think, really the ball is in Attorney General Jeff Sessions' court. I know there's a lot of people that like him, even people that want him to leave that like him, that are saying, look, Attorney General Sessions, you've been there for 2 years, you've done your job, or you haven't done your job, and it's time for you to move on. So I think that, according to them, the right thing for him to do would be to just submit his letter of resignation and, tell the president,
I don't think that's going to happen. And let me just bring Greg into this discussion, because I think in a weird way, although it's not true, in a weird way, Corker is right, because in a sense, the president is savvy enough, the people around him savvy enough to know that if the president fired Jeff Sessions, we know how it would portray and play out in the media and play out among Democrats, and that is a Saturday night massacre. They mentioned 222 times in a day impeachment. This is all the media and Democrats really care about at this point.
Well, if Jeff Sessions had an ounce of integrity and conscience, he would resign. Should have done it a long time ago. Every day Jeff Sessions is the Attorney General. He is doing more and more damage to the Department of Justice, to the FBI, to Congress, which is seeking lawful documents that the DOJ refuses to turn over. Sessions is doing enormous damage to the country. When you've lost the confidence of the president, it is time to resign. Any decent person.
I happen to be in one of the, I am accurately described as Sara. I'm a guy that always liked Jeff Sessions. I still think personally he's a good guy. I just don't think he's up for this job.
Well, there's a difference between being nice and likable, which he certainly is, and competent, which he has proven he is not. He should never have disqualified himself from the Russia case. He cited the wrong regulation when he did it. He was duped, which tells me he's gullible and naive. You know, it's easy to be one of 100 U.S. senators that don't, frankly, do very much. Very hard to be the Attorney General of the United States running the Department of Justice and, of course, underneath that, the FBI. But for his recusal, there would never have been a special counsel. Mueller would not have been allowed to assemble a team of partisans determined to damage Trump, undo the election, and harm the nation at large. And if you want to point the finger of blame at anybody, Jeff Sessions is the guy.
All right, let me move.
Sean,
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Well, and Sean, right on Greg's point, and what you said earlier, you know, about the Dems and those never Trumpers who are going to come after President Trump if he chooses to replace Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Look, he can't even argue that this is a massacre because Jeff Sessions has already recused himself from everything Russia. So their argument is false on its face. I mean, if he was in charge of the whole Russia investigation and he was working against the president, okay, I could see that. But they can't make this argument that this is a massacre when Sessions really has already recused himself from everything Russia and, it appears, everything else. So this is a problem about having the right people in place in your administration to get the job done. And a president needs to be able to communicate with his attorney general. That is an absolute fact. Look, Eric Holder was, with President Obama for years. He was very close to President Obama. They were allies. They stuck to each other like glue. They were always on the same page. This president has the right, as every other president, to have somebody that he can work with, and it's impossible for the president to work with somebody when there's a broken trust.
Well, I think that's all legitimate, and frankly, I don't think Sessions likes the president. And that's fine. You know, people at times don't get along with each other. I want to get into another issue that has come up and been reported. It's actually 4 separate issues. That you have this guy David Pecker, Dylan Howard. They both work for AMI, and that would be the National Enquirer, and they're both very well known. Then we have the report that the Trump Organization CFO also has been given immunity, that all 3 of them have been given immunity, and that the Manhattan District Attorney is now looking into issues involving the Trump Organization's charity, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the first point is that we've known for a long time that the Trump Organization CFO testified already. And we know that this goes back a number of months as it relates to the National Enquirer. And what we're now experiencing, Greg Jarrett, is something that I keep calling recycled news, as if it's big, breaking, earth-shattering news every day. All of this was factored into the Southern District of New York's plea deal with Michael Cohen. There's nothing new here at all that they are reporting.
This is what's called piling on, and it often happens, especially in politics when they think somebody's down, they pile on top. Let's get to the heart of it, the Michael Cohen case. It's not a crime for the president to contribute to his own campaign. Trump can spend an unlimited amount of money on his own campaign. And if Cohen made a payment for him with the intent of it being reimbursed, and it was, that's an advance. You know, at worst, it might be a civil violation, the equivalent of jaywalking, and a $500 penalty, which is nothing compared to what Obama paid, $375,000 for $2 million in illegal donations. Beyond that, it's probably not even qualifying as a campaign expense. It had another purpose to it. He'd done it before, long before he was a candidate, for personal and commercial reasons. This was explained quite nicely by the former chairman of the Federal Election Commission, Bradley Smith, who said, these payments are not illegal under campaign laws. But try to tell that to prosecutors in the Southern District.
It's like saying he's an unindicted co-conspirator, but they didn't accuse Michael Cohen of a conspiracy.
That's right. There has to be an underlying crime in any conspiracy, and there's none
Stay right there.
stated.
We've got to take a quick break. We'll come back more with Sarah and Greg at the bottom of this half hour. John Sale, he used to work for the Southern District of New York. We'll get his take on all of the week's unfoldings, if you will. All right, went a little long in the last segment. We continue with Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett with us. Sarah, we'll give you the final remarks here. I say this airplane lands with a Mueller impeachment roadmap, if you will, should the Democrats win in 74 days.
Yeah, unfortunately, Sean, I would tend to agree with you on that. But look, we can't predict the future. It looks like the Republicans have a really good chance of keeping the House, even if it's by a slim margin. And I think in the end, the American people will have their final say. They're exhausted of this Mueller investigation. They want the country to move forward. It appears that even those never-Trumpers that were in Congress are now on the president's side, some of them at least, and they're fighting to make this country better. And I think eventually in the end, hopefully that plane lands, and it's a different ending than what you just said. Hopefully the plane lands and America can once again get back to business.
All right. Sarah, Greg, thank you.